Hi, welcome to the Grease Den. My name is Brad. I am a guitar technician and a amplifier enthusiast, and I like to work on my friends' guitars, and I like to hot rod them out if they want. Do a lot of electronic mods to my guitars, so occasionally a friend will want me to do the same thing to their guitar. So this is a 1999 KRAMER Voyager with a sweet crackle finish. My friend got this. It was basically like brand new, never played hardly. Frets were in perfect condition. Started out with 3 pickups. We decided over the course of our discussions that we wanted to do some really tricky stuff with it. It came with these 3 little, they're called SPDT single pole, double throw, on-off switches for each pickup, and it had a volume pot. And I had the idea to basically turn one of them into a kill switch, remove 2 of the pickups, so we just do 1 pickup, and that would free up the other, the other switches. So this here at the bottom turned into a kill switch. This here, I call this a smooth switch. It's basically got a tone cap on it. I believe it's a, let's look at my notes here. It's got a 0.01 nanofarad capacitor across 2 of the legs. And that just gives you a little bit of a high roll off. It's very subtle. It's good for soloing. And or just tailoring in an amp that has too much highs, like maybe a Marshall or something. And then this one here is a tight switch, and that has a 0.0022 nanofarad capacitor that rolls off a somewhat significant amount of the lows. It's a lot easier to hear on a clean setting than on a dirty setting, but when you're in the room and you're actually playing with the guitar, it's pretty noticeable with any sort of amplifier or riffs that you might be playing. So those are both passive controls. They don't require any sort of 9 volt or anything. This is typically known as a strangle mod, and you would find them on like a Fender Jaguar or a Mustang. It's not too typical to have a tone switch like this, but in lieu of having an actual tone knob and the ability to just turn on and off, makes it a lot more feasible for if you're like doing some fancy stuff with soloing, if you have time to actually go down there and like alter your tone before you have to go into a solo. But the option is there. It's pretty cool. I like it a lot. I'm probably going to do it to some other of my guitars. We did install a DiMarzio Super Distortion, and I put this nice cream pickup ring on there because it looks sick, and he better not change it because it looks sick. Anyways, I had considered directly mounting the pickup. I think that would look cool too, but unfortunately doing so requires modifying the pickup, and it also, because there's these deep cavities here, it might have pushed through the back tremolo cavity just to get the screws to hold in there, and it's a pain. This was all kind of a pain. It's kind of overkill what I've done. The last thing that I want to talk about before we go to the bench and take a look at some of the stuff I've done is that I installed a preamp booster, which I was able to order a tiny board off of eBay, which is a preamp booster. It has a bass, treble, and middle tiny little potentiometers that you can adjust. I just maxed everything out and dialed in the bass. It sounds very good with distortion. Sounds like Dookie on clean, but it does sound very good with distortion. Yeah, other than that, let's take it over to the bench and I'll talk about some more of the stuff I did to it. All right, so here we go. Just get a little chopstick here for some pointing. So yeah, I installed a 500K push. I believe it's a Bourne's push pot. So it's very smooth, and basically it's just a regular volume pot with the 3 lugs, and it has an in, an out, and a ground. And on the bottom of it is attached there's a switch. That's called a DP-DT switch. It's a double pole dual throw switch. I ordered the preamp booster off of eBay. It's from a company called analogworkshop.eu. Interesting products, came from Poland. There's not a whole lot of options for English language speaking manufactured like stuff like this. There used to be something called the Bicos preamp, which had a bass, middle, and treble knob, and I think in addition to it had a gain knob, and that I installed into my U-Series Ironbird. This is a little different because it doesn't have the overall gain knob, but it does have the bass, middle, and treble, and it has a considerable amount of output. It does sort of smooth out the tone a little bit, fills it out, gives it just a little bit of that more intense, extreme saturation that I like to get out of a guitar. With a pickup like this, it seems like a very good match. I think the Super Distortion, we'll test it out. I think it's about 15K. So yeah, I already talked about these switches: the kill switch, the smooth switch, which is a treble, or really a bass bleed, I guess, and then this is a treble bleed, the strangle switch. And yeah, these work great with the booster. I highly recommend this setup. It's kind of similar to what Neil Moser was doing on his builds back in the 80s and even to this day. Very similar. I'm not exactly sure how he achieves his boost, if it's like a mid boost. This is essentially a mid boost the way I have it set up right now, because I just rolled off the bass a little bit, left the mids and the treble all the way up to get the most gain possible out of it. But it is a little bit woofy. Thankfully, you have this passive switch here. The switches come before the knob in the circuit, so each of these switches is directly after the pickup. It goes from pickup to bass, the tight switch, to smooth switch, to the kill switch, and then from the kill switch it goes to the volume pot, and then from the volume pot it goes to the little preamp board, which is turned on and off by the switch that's attached to the bottom of the volume pot. You can go like that. Not a lot of space in there. It's pretty cramped. I'll show you that in a second. Had to rebuild the tremolo. Basically just added on it was missing its arm, added this on. It's got Loctite in the bottom to keep the nut in place. That was actually something that was pretty important, I found out, because it came off after I strung it up, and it was like pain. I had to rebuild this thing a couple of times because as a result of that. I also put the saddles on backwards. They go on in a specific order, and I just forgot that. I don't do a lot of Floyd Roses necessarily. I do more Kahlers, but I'm pretty good at it at this point. I've done like quite a few of them. The other thing I did is that I stained the fretboard. It was just slightly lighter. I'll try to add a picture in here so you can see. It's kind of hard to tell now. It's still not super dark, but it just looked very dry and sort of like cheap at first. So yeah, I used some Varathane ebony wood dye on it. I saw in a video from my fellow guitar enthusiast, Blood of the Wolf, I think is his channel, and he did an extensive video where he compared the different wood dyes and selected the one that he liked the best, and he's been using that for years. and that was the one he liked the best. So I've had pretty good luck with it. Used it on this guitar, used it on a couple other guitars, and I could have kept going. I probably did like 2 coats and let it sit for about an hour each time, and taped everything off very meticulously. And yeah, it probably could have been darker. I spent a lot of time wiping with naphtha, and I also used 1500 grit steel wool to sort of open up the pores of the wood beforehand, which I think made a big difference. I think I might have used it between coats as well. I don't quite remember. The other thing I'd like to pull your attention to here is that when I removed these pickups, the reason I really agreed to even do this is because I was thinking to myself, there might be crackle underneath those pickups, because it turned out there was crackle underneath the tremolo plate here, and I thought maybe it would be there, and it wasn't. It was covered up in the black gunk that they used to insulate the cavities. So I started sanding at it with 150 grit and some naphtha, and sure enough, there it is. It's tightly patterned, and it's sort of something happened here. I'm not exactly sure how crackling works, but it is a technique that painters use that splits apart the pigment, I think. And then right down in here, it's just, this was never meant to be seen, but it is seen now, and it looks fucking cool. So I'm very into that. I'm very into this guitar. I really wish I didn't have to give it back, but I do. So yeah, we'll just look in. The last thing I did to the tremolo is that I added one of the heavy blocks in there. So I got a heavy block. I had to kind of rearrange these springs because of the size of the block, and they kind of rub a little bit on the they were rubbing here and here, and right in here and here, and even down in here I feel like they're kind of rubbing a little bit. It's just a very tight cavity, not a lot of room. It would probably be better with just the regular old, you know, one of these, the skinnier one, but it adds so much to the tone, and I can still, even though it kind of hits right here, I can still get about a full step's worth of pull up out of it, and it's fully floating, not blocked off. I don't believe in blocking off tremolos. It's like, you know, learn how to do a squealy, you know, like, come on. And it performs adequately, for sure. This is probably not your main guitar for playing blistering leads on, with if you need like 2 whole steps worth of pull up on like a Floyd Rose or whatever. But you could flutter on this, and you can, you know, like, I don't know. This is a KRAMER licensed Floyd Rose, so it might be something worth upgrading to a Goto or a, you know, a German-made Floyd at some point, but I wouldn't, honestly. This guitar, when it was new, was probably around $500 to $600, and I'm pretty sure that my man got this for under $1,000. It's a really great guitar now. I'd say this is a $2,000 guitar easily after all the work I've done to it. Not that he's gonna pay $1,000. He's my buddy, so it's not gonna be like that. But, you know, if it came from the factory like this, maybe with these filled in, you know, with a setup like this, easily you could see it going for a lot more, especially in today's economy where guitars are $1,500. You know, you can't hardly even find an Epiphone for $500 anymore, unless it's like the dirt cheap Epiphone. So yeah, but yeah, no original Floyd, you know, so that immediately kind of tells you that it may not be the highest quality. I was a little concerned with the appearance of the wood, the rosewood. It was kind of like, had like an unusual pattern and haziness to it initially. It's kind of the staining and the liminal treatment has deepened it quite a bit, but it's still just something doesn't look quite right about it, you know. Maybe by this time quality standards had kind of dropped a bit. I believe this is made in Korea. However, it says made in Korea right there on the truss rod cover. Also, the truss rod cover has the strap pin on it, which is kind of unique and cool. Fairly balanced guitar. The strap pins, the other one is here, are in a good location for it to be, you know, fairly balanced. Other than that, I didn't have to do a whole lot to it. You know, just the setup was a bear. Oh, actually, let me back that up. So these saddle pins here, when it came to me, were basically floored. They were all the way screwed down to get the action as low as possible. And even with them that low, it was not playing as well as I was hoping it would. I'm trying not to take my action so low that I'm getting buzzing, but I do want to get it low enough to where it feels like butter when you play on it, you know. And it wasn't feeling like butter; it was feeling more like tar. So I had to do something. I couldn't bring the bridge pins down any further. So I took the neck off and I put a shim in there. And I don't have one to show you, but a shim is basically a small piece of wood. You can buy it from StewMac, and it's a piece of like pine or balsa wood or something that is the shape of the neck pocket. And so I shaped it down a little bit so you can't even really see it. Although maybe if you look in there, you can kind of see it, or even there. It's in there, and it's, you know, I had to really crank down on those the neck screws to get it to clamp down. But it's all tight and clamped down now, and it has a greater degree of neck angle. The neck break angle is higher, so the strings sit higher up here now, which gave me room. And the other thing too is with these all the way down, you couldn't really go forward without it getting stuck on the bottom of the route in here. So it was totally almost unusable the way it was, and that's how it came from factory. So you got to think, I mean, like, yeah, this is not like, it looks great, but it's not exactly the highest quality instrument. And the same thing with the body wood. I don't know if it's basswood or alder, but it just, you can, in the spots where I can see it, there's just something about it. It just looks a little bit, you know, suspect for some reason. But anyways, I don't believe this is a plywood guitar. I think that it's a solid piece of, you know, alder or basswood, maple neck, and rosewood fretboard. So, anyways, after the shim, it's got a really good setup now. The bridge sits a little bit high. You can actually kind of see underneath it. I don't know if you want to see that, but anyways, so let's go around back here. Like I said, you got the big block in here, 3 springs. I like 3 springs. I think that they feel adequate. You don't need to have 4 or 5 springs on any guitar. Just, you know, screw the claw in a little more if you need to get it to be flat. You know, always, you know, just set up your Floyd Rose so that your Floyd is flat. I mean, if you want it to be blocked, fine, but like if you have floating trim, it should be flat. And if it's not flat, you got a problem. You need to take the back plate off. You need to get in there with a Phillips, a number 2 Phillips screwdriver. You need to tighten the claw, unscrew the nut, and tighten the claw until you can get that thing flat with it staying in tune. It takes a long time. People don't want to work on Floyds. That's why they bring them to me. And by all means, like, bring them to me, but, you know, also learn to work on your Floyd Rose guitars, because, like, there's going to come a time when you don't want to spend $150 just to have your guitar set up, you know? It costs twice as much to set up a Floyd Rose. It takes twice as long, or more. So I'm going to take the camera here and show you guys what we're working with. But if you can see in here, yeah, that is the preamp. Now, it's in these, so up top, you have 3 little micro pots, if you would call them that. I don't know what they are. They're labeled bass, middle, and treble. All the wire connections happened here. Okay, there's a little PDF guide that came with it. Tells you what each thing is. There's multiple grounds, an in and out. There's the battery supply. Here's the battery right here. I'm actually going to take the battery out so I can move these wires around. I'll show you what I did with the strangle mod and all that. All right, so as you can see in here, there are 3 switches. Over here is the strangle mod. On the bottom lug, there's a capacitor that crosses over to the middle lug, which is the input, okay, of the second one. So over here to the middle of the lug here. And then from this one there, and this is the smooth switch. It bleeds off some of the treble. There's a capacitor, which is the same value you'd find in most tone pots. And it goes over to the middle lug here, which is the input of the kill switch. Bottom lug of the kill switch goes to ground. The top lug from the over here. So your pickup wire is coming in on the middle lug of the tight switch, and then in the up position, the switch activates and sends the signal through this capacitor. Otherwise, in the other position, there's just a bypass, which would be this red wire here, which passes over, and it joins up the same way that the capacitor does onto the middle lug of the of this other switch here. I'm sorry, I know it's hard to see. And so between the two of those, you'll be getting signal either passing through the capacitor or through just a regular bare wire. And the same thing happens from this to the kill switch. And then, but from the kill switch, it doesn't. It just goes to ground in the down position, which kills it. It's extremely simple wiring scheme, and very effective too. So something that, you know, really anybody could do if they just put a little time in to learn how to wire up a guitar and do some soldering skills. Very proud of this one. Came out great. Yeah. All right, so yeah, here's the KRAMER Voyager. I'm gonna do a little demo here for all the different mods I did to it. And right now I'm plugged into the Bopgner Uber Ultra on the channel 2. Tone switches are off. Just got the volume maxed out on the super distortion here. No booster engaged. We'll try the strangle switch or the tight switch. Just tighten it up a bit. Let's see what it sounds like. See if you can hear it when I switch it on. Again. Here it's on. Try a different riff here. Turn it off again. Guitar plays pretty good. It's got the neck is sort of like a slim C, pretty slim neck. It's pretty similar to my BC Rich guitars. The radius I haven't measured, but it feels, you know, probably like a decent 12 or a 10. Probably a 12. It's relatively flat. It feels a bit like a Gibson. I believe it is 25.5 inch scale length, though. I measured it at 25.5 to the saddles. About 24 3/4 to the actual bridge, though, so depends on what you want to make of that. I believe it's 25.5, though. Would make sense. Yeah, so we'll try the smooth switch. I'm gonna do some like lead work with this one because it's more noticeable on the higher strings. And then after this, we'll try it out on a clean channel so you can really hear the difference. Turn that tight switch off. So here it is, stock. Here's the smooth switch. Try it again with it off. Off again. Switch over to the clean channel. Just adding a little bit of compression. There was a KHDK Ghoul screamer boosting the front end on those other clips. So here it is, stock tone, everything off. Tune pretty hard here. Alright, that's pretty good now. Alright, so here's the clean tones. Let's try that with the smooth switch. Smooth switch off. It's really hard to tell, it's very subtle. Let's try some like high notes here. rounds it out just very slightly. So, okay, yeah, and then the bass roll off, let's try that. Here's just stock. Noticeable, in my opinion. It's a lot more noticeable than the other switch. Here it is back to stock. Yeah, I think it makes a big difference when you're plugged into like a really woofy sounding amp. You can tighten it up just right from your guitar. Pretty cool. So I'm gonna turn all those off and I'll just play around with this booster a little bit. You can't really adjust the bass, middle, and treble knobs without taking the backplate off and getting a really tiny screwdriver in there, and it's extremely tedious. So we're gonna leave it as it is. Like I said, I dial it in. So here's your clean tone. Add the booster on it. See, obviously it's not really meant for a clean channel. I just wanted to do that to demonstrate kind of what it's actually doing to the raw tone. Adds a little bit of grit. Definitely some highs and a lot of mids. It's just great for pushing an overdrive into an amp or pushing an amp. You can probably push an amp with it. So we'll try that. I'll turn my overdrive off and we'll go back to the gain channel. And so you got the preamp on. All my mod switches are off. And go back to channel 2. And the onboard boost is off right now. I'll probably turn that on. But here you go. So you can hear how woofy it sounds, because the bass is still considerably boosted internally. I pretty much installed this with the idea that the player would be using a overdrive pedal or utilizing these switches to shape the tone. You could turn down the bass in there and get a much more crisp tone, but you know, even without the preamp engaged, plug straight in, it's going to be kind of woofy just with the amp settings because it's mostly set up for using an overdrive. But we'll try to tighten it up without engaging the overdrive. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the tight switch. We'll see what that does. Already it's way better. You can you know, feel the palm mutes are much more percussive and like articulate. So that's an incredible mod. It's so cheap. You can do that for, you know, $5 and any guitar pretty much. So I'll charge you a lot more than that, but you know, if you wanted to learn to do it yourself, it's not hard. So I'm gonna put the boost, inbuilt boost on the Bopgner. So it's got a boost engaged now, its own boost. Let's see what that sounds like. Sounds pretty good. The other thing you can do is you can turn both the tight and the smooth switch on, and you'll get a bit of a mid boost that way because it's sort of rolling off the lows and the highs, creating like a, you know, sort of like a mushroom shape with the you know, the tone. So, you know, let's see what that sounds like. Turn the smooth switch back off. Do a little bit of lead playing. Keep the leads, the smooth switch off. Well, we got a tight switch on. Let's see what that's like, and I'll change it up. Lower the action a little bit on this before I give it back to him. It's a little bit high on the high side, but it sounds really good, really nice and deep. You get all the benefit of that heavy block, that heavy brass block in there. It's coming through. So yeah, we'll turn the smooth switch on now. See what that does to the lead tone. Like that a lot. I think that's a great lead tone with both the switches on. I kind of like the rhythm tone a little better with the smooth knob off. That way it's a little more crunchy. So yeah, I'm gonna switch over to the SLO now. I'm on like the clip switch is in the down position, so Dave Friedman modded this amp and it has a clip switch which allows it to change the cold clipping capacitor or resistor, and it just gets it a little bit tighter and a little bit more gain. So it's in that mode right now. I'm gonna leave it there. So, yep, both switches are on and booster is on. Let's give it a try. back to the stock tone with the preamp on. Makes a big difference with the switch on, the tight switch on. Sounds quite good. Turn the preamp off. Let you hear what it sounds like without the preamp. Alright, turn the preamp back on. And I'm going to engage a boost. Turn on the Ghoul screamer again. Sounds really good with this guitar. Hell yeah, can I get a woo? That was a killer tone. Very sweet guitar tone.